have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. Stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. Stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. Stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. Stay here any longer. Not now.
Unseen for generations, a Dyad in the Force.
Hello everyone and welcome to Dyad in the Force. I hope you're all ready for sadness and destruction and bitter feelings. Claudia, why do you hurt us so good? Anyhow, this is going to be an awesome show because we are going to do a deep dive into the Fallen Star. If time permits, we'll hop into the Book of Boba Fett a bit, but mostly we're diving deep into the High Republic here. So stay tuned and get ready. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Pep?
I feel like we've needed this for more than 2 weeks now. I gave a lot of people a lot of time to read this and kind of get through their own, thoughts within themselves. Hopefully everyone is doing okay.
We all had to go through the stages of grief before we would really willing to talk about it. So it's understandable. Yeah. It makes sense.
But we are joined by our very own Dyad in the Force # Fallen Star Therapy. We are joined by Star Wars English class Fern, Julia, and Sawyer makes her return to the High Republic table. Welcome everyone. For those watching, we'll start with Fern. If you want to reintroduce yourselves to the masses, where can we find you? Where does this book rank for you? And anything else you want to talk about?
Hi everyone, I'm Fern. I'm at Always Fern on TikTok, and I am one half of Star Wars English class, which is a podcast. It's basically what it sounds like. We do English class concepts using Star Wars as our primary text. This book ranks pretty high for me because Claudia Gray's work always does. I would say it has not dethroned Into the Dark. And I will say there is a book coming out soon that I had the privilege of having some early access to that I think is going to take the top spot pretty soon. But I would rank this like my third or fourth favorite canon book right now.
Very nice.
Nice. Shout out to DJO. Oh, coming up soon.
And Julia?
It's really good. I know we're talking about a different book, but I'm with Fern. I think they pair really well together. But in terms of I'm Julia. I'm the other half of Star Wars English class. Fern already described the show, but we did an episode on the Fallen Star. Actually, I'll say to sort of say something different. We did an episode. So if you want to hear our kind of initial reactions, now I think we've both had time to think a little bit more deeply about it. But if you want kind of initial reactions, also if you haven't read it, the first half of that episode is spoiler free, so you can listen to the first half and just hear our reactions to it without spoilers, and then the second half we get into it. But I would say probably pretty similar to Fern. I think maybe our only difference is that I rank The Rising Storm above Into the Dark, so we probably have those flip-flopped. But other than that, that's where I would put it, pretty much in the same spot.
Awesome. Some diversity in opinion. I think Choco and I are similarly divided in our ranking. And Sawyer, welcome back.
Thank you. It feels very, very nice to be back. I'm Sawyerism. I think you can see my title here. I'm sure most of the people watching have seen me once or twice before, but I don't say this lightly. To this day, the best book, Star Wars book I have read, in my opinion, has been Revan. I think this one is on that same level. For me personally, obviously Revan's not a canon book, but I mostly read in the Legends department. This book is that good. It's my favorite canon book. It's as good as Revan, if not better.
Wow. What's that movie called? That's high praise.
I kept expecting you to just go to this day. To this day. To this day.
Let's check in with some people in the chat. We have Saint Pat, Jonathan Politz, Jordy Jedi, Star Wars Lawyer in the building, Xanatos 1138. We have Malik in the chat. Forward into the black. What's up, Chase? Star Wars Lawyer with the early Julia and Fern love with I think that's 6 exclamation points. We have JJ, Cat Lady. I just wanted to say hi, but I don't know if I can stick around. Yes, avoiding High Republic spoilers, absolutely. You definitely don't want this book spoiled for you, for sure. But in case you're wondering, you can read Light of the Jedi, Rising Storm, and Fallen Star as like the primary books. Of course, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of like story beats within the YAs and the youth readers that will round out your experience of the High Republic, but those are the 3 main books if you're wanting to catch up like expeditiously. And I say that channeling now I forget his name from ATL. He likes to say expeditiously. Choco, help me out.
I can't. I'm sorry.
He's in movies now.
No, I know who you're talking about. I don't have a name either.
Oh my gosh.
But for any of you guys in the chat, and hopefully Pep is okay with me plugging something. But both Fern and Julia were alluding to being able to get an early read for the book Midnight Horizon by Daniel Jose Older. I myself have not finished it. However, I just dropped some links in the chat if you guys are interested in getting prepared for it, right? So there's an Audible free trial as well as there needs to be another space there. I didn't pick that up. If you wanted to pre-order Midnight Horizon, it's available for pre-order, and this book, I just started it, but it's already been very good. I'm so busy. I need to catch up.
I actually think I have a card prepared for this, but it's for Choco. So let's see what this is about. Hold on. Here you go. Just go to Choco's links that he's put in the chat. I think this is what you're plugging, right? The 30-day trial.
Yeah, 30-day trial, and also there's a direct link to the book if you wanted to order it from Amazon. So,
and they do get they can get the like a free audiobook as well.
Yep, you get free audiobook credits if you sign up for a free trial and do your thing.
So yeah, go to Choco's links in the chat, get yourself Midnight Horizon or any of the other books that you're missing from your library. And of course, I do want to do like a quick free shout out to Libby. If you're wanting to catch up for cheap, a lot of the books are, in your local libraries. And you can get them via Libby, and you can actually, a lot of libraries now in the pandemic are supplying, like, you can get a full on library card online. Like, you don't have to go in there. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
But basically half of my time on TikTok and on making content is just to encourage people to read more Star Wars books, more books in general. But It's the best.
So we have a question here from Cat Lady. Do you guys enjoy audio or reading books? And I'll pass this off to the panel. Chime in if you have an answer.
The only audiobook I've read or listened to was see, I can't even remember its name half the time because Fatal Alliance. That's the only audiobook I've read, and it was painful. So for me personally, it got me through like my dissection class, but I need to like something I love about the High Republic is I don't need the audiobook. Like I am just fully I can see everything going on, and I don't know. I can't do the audiobook thing, but
Yeah, I'm very similar. I am much more of a visual person than an auditory person, but I will say The Fallen Star was the first Star Wars audiobook I've listened to because that's how it was provided to Julia and I, and it was a very different experience, and I haven't had the chance to go back with the physical text yet, but I think it will be interesting to compare just how different my reading experience is, if it is different, which I expect that it will be. But yeah, I'm a physical copy of a book kind of person.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Julia?
Yeah, same. This was my first. Well, technically, I sometimes will re-listen to Star Wars books as audiobooks, but it's never my first go through. But again, that's what we got, and so we're more than happy to listen to it that way. You know, as someone who really likes, everyone reads at their own pace, and I think they're not being able to kind of jump around in the way I normally would very much affected the way I read it. So I am also looking forward to going back. I will also say, I think Mark Thompson is an excellent narrator, but some of the voices of like the like Affy and Nan were just a little much for me, and kind of like I just at some points was hard to kind of not get taken out of it. When you know there's just a high-pitched voice for every girl character in the book or whatever. So but yeah, I definitely physical book. Digital texts are okay, but like physical hard copy is my go-to method of reading. That being said, the audiobooks are very well produced. They're a whole production. You get music, you get sound effects. So if you like that sort of theatrical, sort of immersive experience, they're excellent. It's just what kind of reading experience you prefer.
Yeah, and I'm always trying to encourage my students who are like reluctant readers to get into audiobooks, because a lot of them feel like they don't have the time to sit down with a physical copy of a book, but if they can listen to an audiobook while driving to and from school or to and from work, and that's going to be more accessible to them, I think they absolutely should. So if audiobook is your preferred format, like, good on you, and that's great. I think it's wonderful that we have more ways to read now than we have had in the past.
Absolutely. And with Julia, bringing that up, I'm just like thinking back to like the first time I heard Into the Dark, and then, oh, hi, my name is Nan. That's just all I hear.
It's just very jarring. Like, I don't know how to explain it. There are some choices, Chansey being Irish or Scottish or whatever it is. I was not prepared for that because I'd never listened to any of the other audiobooks. There were just some choices being made. Orla does sound like the bat from Anastasia a little bit. Some things that were harder for me. Yeah. I mean, I didn't ruin my experience, but I did find myself being surprised by the voices, which was really kind of amusing.
So I can fully agree with that. I always mention it, but like in the in the Thrawn Ascendancy books, his voice for Wootro, like all of the chists are like these really just refined, like crisp voices. But one of the commanders just has this really like Cockney British accent, and it's so weird, like juxtaposed with Arlani speaking, and she's like, "Well, what's all this then?" And you're like, but and we also laugh because he can't do Mace Windu's voice. It has a southern accent.
I was about to say that.
Oh, that's.
but
it's bad. It's bad.
That being said, for myself, I mean, I do I mean, I have been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm audibly stimulated. Like, in school, I had to sit in the back of the class because I couldn't pay attention because of the sounds I would hear. But if I could see the sounds, the cause of them, then I could actually focus on what's happening. And so while I would prefer to be able to sit there with a physical book, because I'm good at remembering page numbers and I can like, oh, what was that thing in the back, and can come back there really quickly. Sadly, I don't have that ability on an audiobook. However, it does lend me more ability to focus. And I found that with audiobooks, by speeding up I'm less listening to someone talk and more opening my brain up and letting the information flow, where I'm not consciously thinking about the words being said. I'm just feeling and understanding the story. So that's how I do it. Plus, I'm always running around doing stuff. So.
Well, if everybody knows me by now, they know that I do both. And if you guys haven't read the physical copy yet, and you only just listened to the audiobook, if you're going to go back to do it, you should probably do both. I think it's an experience that everyone should kind of try at least once or twice and see if that, because it's basically a marriage of both ways, like audio, visual, stimulation. And for me, it's also like the quickest way for me to double retain everything that I'm hearing and seeing. Mm-hmm. So when I read a book and I listen to an audiobook, it's super slow, and I'm just like, okay, I'm already on page 3 and you're on like the 3rd word. So I listen to audiobooks at 2.5x, and then I read the book, the physical book or the Kindle book, as if I'm reading subtitles on a movie. And it's kind of just like this experience that you're getting, just like Choco described, you're getting the story, you're getting the movie, just without actual visuals. It's all happening in your head, but you're hearing it, play out. So,
no,
that is the.
I was able to get FINRA licensed just through audiobooks. So if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does.
I mean, I've tried audiobooks alone before, but like similarly with my ADHD, I will just like get lost in something else and then just completely like, wait, what was I listening to just now? Certain like important parts especially will get glossed over in my mind, so I have to follow along.
Much like Leox's S's.
Yes. Gotta gloss over those S's. Shout out to Claudia Gray for finally, all right.
Canonizing Matthew McConaughey. It's incredible. Welcome to the Star Wars universe, Matthew.
Exactly.
So happy you're here.
The last time we saw Claudia in an interview, I think it was the last time I saw her was either the Octavia Books panel that she had with the other authors, or there was another one, right? There was another one that they held in like more recently with Justina Ireland. But
was it the 1-year anniversary special?
No, it was for another library. It was for another like bookstore that they did. Right. But I remember her saying like she did get that question, and I think Claudia was like, "Yeah, I want Matthew McConaughey playing Leox," and she just manifested that via audiobook. Like, finally in the audiobooks, they corrected the pronunciations of a lot of things, and I think that was part of like the roundtable. They're like, okay, it's Markion, it's Niall, also Leox is Matthew McConaughey, so make sure you get that right.
Those were the top 3 things coming in. They were like, what do we want to make sure going forward we have like really solidified as the High Republic, making those top 3 most important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to audiobooks, it feels like they tell the reader, like, okay, the main character of this story is like this person, so that's the voice you have to get right. And then try to do the other ones the best you can. And so that's why if you go to like if you listen to the Ahsoka audiobook, it's Ashley Eckstein reading it. Now she is doing other people's voices the best she can, but obviously she's going to be best at Ahsoka. Janina Gavankar does it in Inferno Squad. Catherine Tabor does it for the Padme books, and it's very specific. But with the High Republic, it has its own added difficulty because there is no main character. There's so many primary characters that it's like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? This is the best we can do. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Xanatos in the chat also kind of, Leox is Kurt Russell, Captain Ron. But Matthew McConaughey can't spell. Would probably play Leox in anything. That was the first thing that I thought of when I was reading Into the Dark. I was like, that's definitely McConaughey right there. He's glossing over those asses. Malik says, look at all of these amazing people. Absolutely. And he also casts Leox as Sam Rockwell, or Sam Rockwell as Leox. That's not bad. That's not a bad choice either. Okay. So before we run out of time talking about this stuff, let's go into part 1 of Fallen Star Wars. So we are now entering spoiler territory for you guys who are trying to avoid spoilers, but please continue to support the stream, give it a like and mute it, and just lurk. So part 1 of Fallen Star. Let's see here as I go into the thread again. I am dubbing this anything from the beginning with Elzar's training all the way on to Geode's flirting and how everybody gets to Starlight. So I do want to start with Sawyer really quickly. Among everything that happens in part 1, what are 3 things that stand out to you? And that.
Okay. Elzar, I think you guys, I said this before in Rising Storm, Elzar is one of my favorite characters. I would say Elzar and Orla are my favorite characters in the High Republic. And I really, really love what they did with his character, well, for the most part, in this book. And I was... So something that stands out to me from the first part, I would say, was kind of leading up to the reveal that it was Orla who was helping him kind of guide his way back to the light side. Because, at first it's just like, oh, Stellan picked the perfect person, to help him, and an unexpected person, and I don't really know who I was thinking it would be, but it was Orla, and I loved that relationship. I really loved the way that Orla was used in this book as kind of a guiding light for both Stellan and Elzar in different ways, and really the demonstration that someone who chooses to follow themselves and let the Force kind of follow them as opposed to, serving the Order as, say, Stellan does, can really be a beneficial contributor to the Jedi as a whole. So I really, really loved that introduction and just kind of the setup for Elzar's role in the story. It was really nice to see the vessel crew again. And it wasn't so nice to see. I didn't have a pleasant feeling with Nan and Chansey. They're I don't care for either of those characters, so I was just like, they're
why
not.
Don't you care about me?
Oh my God! Stop it! I just,
Elmo knows where you live.
They're like, I can't even think of. Okay, this is a terrible analogy, but if Markion Ro was Bowser, Nan and Chansey are Bowser Jr. They're annoying, like a side villain, and that's how I interpret them. And so
Your camera agrees, and it's like going.
No.
The whole time I was like, how did you get her camera to like nod?
It's falling now. This is horrible. What the heck? Hello? It's like, okay, whatever. Let's see, what else? And then of course, Markion's setup. You kind of know what he's doing. You know, it establishes from the beginning that he has this grand plan, and anyone who is familiar with his character knows that you don't know the full plan until it's too late. I guess I feel like this book. What is happening?
I think that might be a software thing. I think the camera that you got has face.
It does.
It follows face tracking.
Does, but I don't know. Okay, we're just gonna whatever. I think that this book really utilized the reader's understanding of Markion Rowe in a positive way, in the sense that, you know, with Rising Storm, we didn't know. We had a feeling because of what happens at the end of The Light of the Jedi. We had a feeling this guy was really bad news and he had a lot of tricks up his sleeve, but even still, we were still kind of getting to know just how bad he was. And by Fallen Star, you know how bad he is, and so they didn't have to spend any time with the like suspense. They kind of set it up. No, you know, I mean, how bad things are gonna get and what his plan is kind of from the get-go, but you just don't know how bad it is gonna affect everybody quite yet. And I really liked that as opposed to what they had done previously, because where Markion goes, fear follows, but I feel like they've been really creative with how they present it. So that even though you think you know what he is capable of at this point, you don't. And in some cases he didn't, because he was, you know, he had people do his bidding this time, and he didn't know the exact events of what were happening. He could guess, but yeah, those are my thoughts on part one.
It's funny with you see with Markion, he's first established as some like annoying kid, right? Who's kind of just like annoyed with his legacy, but we start to realize quickly throughout the books that he is very much capable. And what I liked about Rowe in this is that he's largely absent, but still has such a huge role in whatever's happening on Starlight and whatever's happening in the galaxy. Really quickly before we shift to Fern, shout out to Poke Nation in the chat. The Star Wars obsession, Sawyer, your cam looks so good. Malik with the Orla supremacy, and Luke saying, if only Anakin had Orla, maybe things would have gone differently. I don't know about that one, but it's good to yeah.
Real quick, thank you to Star Wars Obsession, because he actually provided me with this camera, so thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. What's up to Kiki from the PNW? It's Julia on the live stream. And okay, so let's go to Fern, part 1. Thoughts?
Yeah. I also really enjoyed the training sequence between Elzar and Orla. I was thinking about this, or trying to sort of understand this, because we don't get too much of Orla's point of view in this book. And this is sort of how I felt with all of these High Republic books, which have all been split point of view. You know, the structure is like a split point of view between many characters. There's always this sense that, oh, I wish we'd had a little more of this character, or I wish we'd had a little more of this other character. I wish we'd had a little more of Orla, because I am interested in this idea that she has left the Order to follow the will of the Force, whatever that may be. And where it takes her is essentially guiding other people, not necessarily back to the Order, but back to the light, back to a sense of being centered in the Force. And I think right until this moment, I didn't realize that that is her journey. Like, that is where that is sort of like the culmination of her arc in some ways. And I like that quite a lot. I really enjoy that idea. I also think I'm also very interested in the way that the Nile are presented, especially in the first portion of this book, because I think in every High Republic book so far, they've been represented or portrayed, I guess, as something a little bit different. Like, are they Viking types? Are they pirates? Are they anarchists? Are they political idealists? Like, what is their story? They don't seem to be any one thing. And The Fallen Star portrays them, or portrays Three Nile specifically, as religious extremists, which is something we sort of see a little of in Out of the Shadows as well, but is really, I think, driven home in The Fallen Star. And there is so much to unpack there that I don't know if we'll have like the chance to today, but it was an interesting perspective, and it was the first time I felt like we were getting to see some Nile who were invested in being Nile, not for, I guess, like material reasons or material motivations, but because they like believe in this mission, they believe in this vision that Marchion Ro has, which is fascinating and is another point of view that I think I wish we had seen just a little bit more of. I can talk in a bit about like the narration in certain chapters and how different it is compared to what else we've seen in the High Republic era. But yeah, I thought it was like a very interesting take on the Nile, and I don't want to say a refreshing one, but I think like a really necessary one to understand them and understand what they're about.
Absolutely necessary. And Fern, if you haven't gotten it yet, I highly recommend.
I have not gotten it yet. Okay.
If you want to get more depth into the origins of the Nile, yeah. and Marchion's family and his species' home planet, and why their beliefs are what they are, it is covered in this. This will be 2 parts, so only part 1 is out right now. But yeah,
I have to make a trip to a comic book store. Looks like.
Yeah. So like going off of what you said about the Nile's portrayal, I don't think before this book we ever got Nile portrayed the way Kale, Leal, and Werera are portrayed. Right? Do we have like I don't want to say the word, but do we have like Nile that are willing to be like martyrs? I don't think so.
No, by their very nature,
yeah,
they shouldn't be. But go ahead, Julia.
Oh, I was just gonna say the closest thing, and I think we mentioned this on our Fallen Star episode, was Nan's sort of admiration or her sort of view of, I guess I have to call Marchion now, even though Council's made a decision and I don't like it, but it's fine. When she's sort of talking about him being beautiful, or this idea that he's this sort of engaging person, that like she seems to be in it for him, and then that clearly continues on throughout sort of Nan's journey throughout this book, where Nan too is not really in it, it seems like, as much for personal gain. I mean, she clearly wants to rise through the ranks, but at the same time, the specific draw of, as many refer to him as Mark, the specific draw that Mark has seems to be something that she's into it. Although obviously she has a much different reaction. She's not willing to sacrifice herself. In fact, works very hard to try to achieve the opposite. But I think still sort of sees him in that same light of being someone she wants to impress and have make an impact on for what, right? So there seems to be something else there that's not just material gain, but obviously for different purposes.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like one of the reasons I'm really loving the Nile as a villain is one of the things that George Lucas did when creating the Jedi and creating the Force is he basically tried to distill all religions that he could find and research down to the common elements between all of the ones that he studied. He tried to create like an average and then use that to generate them. This feels to me like someone did something similar, but with organizations, where there will be an organization and some people will take that with that same religious reverence. Some people will use it for their own political gain, some people for their financial gain. And it's, I don't know, I appreciate it because I've been seeing that type of devotion lately in places that it feels odd. So,
are you saying the Nile are an MLM?
They are. They are, though.
That was, he said that day one.
Okay, so you just get 3 people under you, and then they'll get 3 people under them, and then you guys can be a strike. And if you get enough strikes, then you can become a storm. Like it is absolutely an MLN. That's.
You do get a starter kit with like a mask and some weapons. You do have to pay. It's 1,000 credits, but that's going to go right back into your pocket because the moment you get those people under you, right, you're going to be making this back right away. So I know it's been a while since we've talked at the Royal Academy, but I just wanted to check in terms of like what you're doing lately, because I feel like this could be a really good opportunity for you. So just like, get back to me. Like, just check in. I think like, I know he seems scary, but Mark's a really nice guy and he cares about this company. So, the end of it is just going to be a HBO documentary with all the former Nile sitting down being like, I should have known.
But like, I do think we are supposed to, in this book, in The Fallen Star, we are supposed to view the Nile as a cult, and you guys probably know how I feel about that, which is like,
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I feel like it's happening every week now. I don't get it.
It's okay. It could have been worse. I went on a show once, and the host internet was having trouble, but it was like a centralized service. I think that was just a Zoom like thing, and so I ended up hosting it because he couldn't be on it. And that was my first time on the Keeg Show.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh my gosh.
Press F in the chat if you guys are with us again. But I'm sorry. I think I cut out in the middle of Vern.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that, like, I think it is interesting to explore what it means for these characters to believe in the vision of the Nile, and how does that change our understanding of them and like their actions, if it does change our understanding of them at all. I also think it's interesting that like Markion is essentially portrayed as like a charlatan. Like, he doesn't believe in this vision. He is sending other people to like go do his bidding for his own gain, but not because he has any like ideological ideological purpose, I guess. And like, I wonder what it is that makes us like invested in stories of like, what makes us want to believe that like 3 people who would be willing to go on essentially a suicide mission, that they are being like taken advantage of, that they are being tricked. Like, what would it mean if Markion actually was like also believing in this mission and was not using them as tools, like would that also change our understanding of denial? I'm just throwing out hypotheticals here, but like I've been very interested in this idea for a long time, and like especially regarding denial and who they are and what they believe in. So I think there are questions left to be answered here.
Absolutely. Julia, have you given
Why are they portrayed as being? No, I haven't talked about part 1.
Well, before we get to Julia's part 1, I do want to say that like when I will prompt people to talk, but definitely feel free to chime in as they're saying something that you think resonates with you. Just so like you guys don't get lost in someone else's thoughts and like they go on to something else and then you forget that they just when someone says something that you want to talk about further, definitely feel free to chime in. But Julia, your thoughts on part 1 and whatever you wanted to say prior to that?
I was just gonna say, going off of Fern, why are they portrayed as being in denial? The three of them on the suicide mission. That was my really important thing I needed to say. But talking about part 1, serious answer, my not serious answer is I'm so happy that Elzar has long hair and some beard action. I just am very pleased that they're like, let's just kind of like, mess them up a little bit. Get some long hair in there, some like beard action, very, very aesthetically pleasing for me in my mind. But I really enjoy how the first third of this book focuses on checking in with the characters in terms of where they are emotionally. I can't remember if the part I'm thinking of is in part 1 or part 2, but there's a moment where Indira and Belle are talking about grief. That is one of my favorite passages I've read in a Star Wars book, and it's something that I think really clues me in and reminds me that one of the things, like there are things about this book I don't like, but when it comes to the philosophy of the Force that is presented here by sort of Claudia, I am very on board with her understanding of the importance of detaching for good. I think the way it's presented as like one of my favorite descriptions is like grief doesn't go away, you grow larger around it. So you have this sort of core of grief inside of you, and then as you grow, progress as a person, you sort of become bigger, and it looks smaller by comparison because you have built up in your life your connections to the things that matter to you, the way you can sort of progress in the world and help people. And I think that is the type of message that Belle is getting in this moment. And I think similarly in terms of Elzar's development, it seems like focusing less on himself, which again I think develops into him, taking that leadership role towards the middle. But I really liked that sort of emotional intimacy we got with a lot of these people in terms of where they're at emotionally. And I think especially since once you get to the things start going badly, they're mostly just like making decisions, right? We still have little moments of them struggling internally, but it sets the stakes emotionally for these characters. And that was very satisfying for me. I would have been fine if it was just 300 pages of Elzar's internal monologuing, like thinking about his relationship to the Force. Like I would be happy with that. Nothing needs to happen. So I don't remember if it's in this first part, but yeah, I would say Indira and Belle's little moment talking about grief was beautiful. And Claudia Gray just writes really beautiful prose, and that's not something you need in a Star Wars book, but I appreciate that she continues to do it. So,
absolutely. I mean, I think one of my favorite things about part 1 was the training of Elzar, and Orla is my favorite. And when it was revealed that she was helping Elzar with his troubles, I was like, yeah, that's my girl. And the way that they were presenting her training Elzar, it almost came off as like Yoda-esque to me. Like the way that she was teaching him how to deal with his troubles and kind of like cracking wise with him and just being like Dagobah Yoda. I was just like, she's gonna be able to fight this thing.
Now, just a separate side note. if you guys enjoyed this book, I am going to highly recommend also reading the latest Star Wars 2020 issue.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil anything, but do it.
Well, I mean, they released the preview of it a couple of weeks ago on StarWars.com. I mean, do you guys not know about issue 20?
I haven't read it, but like I know.
Okay. I mean, if the information was released publicly, then yes, go ahead and let it know. I only check out StarWars.com on Thursdays for the Star Wars show.
Julia, Sawyer, are you aware of issue 20 of Star Wars?
No, but you can tell me.
I mean, okay. Well, ambiguously speaking, Luke meets someone from the High Republic.
Okay.
And it's quite the meeting. And we seem to have lost Julia, but we'll wait for her to come back.
Which is a shame because I think she would very much want to talk about this this meeting. No, it's really good.
We can circle back as soon as she rejoins.
No, I'll make sure, but I'll go ahead and I suppose speak my part. Yeah. So in this first part, it's just really interesting to see how Markion plots, because he's just always been a fascinating character. It also kind of makes me curious to people that only read for the first time through, like the revelation of who Markion Ro is, and that he made the call in the beginning of Light of the Jedi, hit really hard listening to the audio, because you realize that was the same voice and you just didn't you kind of glossed over it. But no, that training sequence with Orla, when she just explains to him, yes, you go with the flow. That's the problem. You understand, how you have to learn how to resist the force from pushing you, hither and thither, so you don't get into trouble anymore. Reginald Call. That guy, I picture him as Jason Bateman. I don't know if you guys watch Arrested Development, but like I picture Jason Bateman as Reginald Call, just being the character of Michael Arrested Development. I don't know. I can't unsee it. Go ahead.
I have wanted a character like Reginald Call for so long. I felt similarly when he was introduced to how I felt when I met Reith Silas for the first time, of just like, oh, I have wanted this particular type of character and this particular type of Jedi for years now, and now it's being given to me, which is just delightful. So he's wonderful. He's a preschool teacher, basically.
It's incredible.
Oh man, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think the funniest thing he said to me was like when he started speaking, he was like, "I don't like kids. I don't do well around them." I don't know what voice I'm manifesting there for Reginald, but
Oscar the Grouch? I don't know. No, but also thinking about like running the Jedi like crash and being like, yeah, this is tough, but like imagine 2-year-olds that have magic. That's hell. Yeah. That is my nightmare. So I don't know. He just makes me laugh just as a character.
I also feel like they forgot the I and the N in the name.
Well, see, when he was given to the temple, his name was written on like a piece of flimsy, like really quickly, and so they got it and they were like, Reginald? All right. And then just kind of went with it. His name is Reginald, but it didn't translate, like it just didn't get to the Jedi, so
it was written in a different language, and yeah, they just
the seeker wrote his name on their hand and then got back to Coruscant and was like, oh, I don't know what the language is. I just know that this is a baby.
Coley Lynn was also an interesting character to get introduced. As soon as he came, I mean, I regrettably, the description of this character came around the same time I kept seeing these TikTok videos with this one redheaded guy who was the best. And I couldn't help but seeing that guy as Coley Lynn.
That's true. That's true.
And so it's, you know, it's just that was a whole thing as well. But like the way that they described the leveler's presence, that really did speak to me. Where it's, I mean, they're taking everything, every piece of the Jedi's strength and turning it on its head, especially the Force. And I mean, we'll get into it further, but that question comes: what is a Jedi without the Force?
Yeah.
What is a Jedi if you can't rely on the Force? What does that mean for you? Are you a person without it? You know, that remains to be seen. But I'll dive into that a bit more. That was my favorite takeaway from this whole story.
I also loved when they're getting ready to go, and Elzar just happens upon Geode, and he's like, what is this thing? Like, is this part of my training? And then Geode, and then you see Geode like on Starlight doing things that let you know that he gets it. You know what I mean?
Dude's wife is sitting on Geode. He's like, "The hell, man!"
Yeah.
Geode's like, "Don't worry about it, man." Like,
I also love that they addressed the traversal of Sedvintians in this part of the book. Like just a guy, like just a side character in the back. How does he move?
Yeah, there were parts in this book where I felt like Claudia was getting back at all the people that did
absolutely
not respond well to Geode. Having never read Into the Dark at all, they were just like, what is this rock? I can't remember, there was a part where Coley Lynn in general was like, what's this rock gonna do to me?
Yeah.
Bestie, I have some news for you.
Well, Leox said something specifically to Coley Lynn that was like, yeah, no, Geode's a really cool and interesting character, but not everyone is intelligent enough to perceive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, I mean, it's true.
It's true.
Also, doesn't he have like the most OP like racial passive skill? Someone shoots him, and then like Affy's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, he can like, you know, magnetically seal himself and just not be harmed."
Of course he can.
Funny.
Geode used Harden.
I don't want them to ever explain it. Like, I never want. I just want to live in like blessed ignorance about how Geode can exist. I think it's fantastic, and I think we all need to like, you know, just accept that sometimes things don't make sense because it's Star Wars, and that's what makes it so good.
But I think the more that the more that Geode doesn't make sense, makes sense.
He's so cool that he deserves a definite article. I'm okay with the Geode. But also,
I feel like after the events of this book, he's gonna roll up and people are gonna be like, "Is that the Geode?" Like, I think it's gonna happen. You know, his tales. There's gonna be like a Western song about like a duel with him and a raider, and yeah, it's gonna go mega viral.
Yeah. Lastly, also I wanted to mention, because we've been hyping up Orla, but her interesting use of just tactics when the vessel shows up and there's an attack happening, and they're like, we should just leave. Like, that's the best thing we can do for these people. And you're like, no, there's other options other than just fighting.
Yeah. I thought that was cool too. Just being able to see a victory within a small little inch of headroom in that situation, that was cool. That's why we love Orla. Hello to Eleanor Marsh, who says, every time someone says Elzar, I look up because I hear either my own name or the name of my very first Star Wars OC. Someone please send help. I get it. Elzar, Eleanor, man,
Very
Marsh.
similar. Obligatory shout out to Eleanor Marsh, who is my best friend, and I love her very much, and thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in, Eleanor, and supporting your best friend. So does anybody else have any thoughts on like part 1, or you guys want to get into the nitty gritty?
Just that a best friend of Fern is a best friend of ours. I don't make the rules. That's how it works. Welcome.
Yes. This is the way.
You mean our best friend Eleanor?
This is
Eleanor?
This is the
Eleanor?
eternal path. Okay, so moving on to part 2, which I dubbed the beginning. This is kind of like where it all starts to kind of crumble. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of the book because it read horror to me. Like a lot of this part read like Alien. And if you've ever played Alien Isolation, that too. Just the looming dread of someone kind of, and I feel like they kind of dropped the ball there when they kept on sending single individuals to investigate this feeling. Like we had Reginald and
They called it out.
I know, but we had Reginald and we had Orla and all the other Jedi. Like you feel this feeling, right? Yeah, I feel the feeling too. It's like, and Reginald's like, it's nothing. And then you send one person to look at it, and then you get like people coming back, basically not coming back, but they still send one more person anyway to investigate that one.
Can I just real quick point out that so Bell Zettify is the black guy in the group, and he's like, you guys want to split up? That's the worst idea. Have you never seen a scary movie? And then, he literally says
Choco,
that.
don't you mean a fright hollow?
Fright Hollow. Yeah. I love how, but he's just like, you want to? Why? Why would you go towards it? Let's.
Yeah,
that just made me laugh.
and it was just
Yeah.
go for it.
I was going to say Belle is, I would say, the only character in this book who takes a lot of wins and sort of consistently, successfully achieves his goals and like he has the most like upward trajectory in terms of like success and like overall. I think that's just a good example of him making good decisions and like really there's a lot of tragedy, there's a lot of sadness, but Belle as a character really grows in this book, and it's an example of him sort of thinking as a Jedi Knight. I don't know exactly when it happens, but when he's talking to Stellan at one point and he's just like, this is my plan, this is what I'm gonna do. He's not asking for permission, and Stellan tragically is like, oh man, he's gonna make a great Jedi Knight, I can't wait to see it. And it's a great little moment. But Belle is really the MVP in terms of like doing what needs to be done and like coming up with great plans to save the day. Yeah. So he did his homework. He watched some Fright Hollows and he knew what to do.
He is rapidly becoming my favorite Jedi. His trajectory almost assuredly means he'll be my favorite Jedi in whatever next arc he has, but we'll see.
Yeah, that was going to be the trajectory, and then I read the Mission to Disaster, and Vernestra is still up there.
Yeah,
for me.
No, that's fair.
But we'll start us off, Julia, along with this additional question. Your highlights for part 2, but also why do you think Indira survived? Like, what was different about her experience versus everyone else's?
Well, so the real answer is plot reasons. She survived because that's the story for Belle. and she had to be in the medical wing, and then he's in the medical wing, and then he can do the plot stuff in the medical wing. But I also think, starting off in terms of part 2, I agree. It is tense and suspenseful. It's not necessarily super scary. We said this in our episode, but like, if you're not someone who likes horror, like, it's creepy, it's sort of scary, but you'll, I think, be able to handle it. This is something that Fern and I agree with. The way the leveler is described, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know. Like, I want to know as little information about it as possible, because the idea of this like eldritch horror that is sort of everyone who survives it sees something different, and as you were alluding to, it takes away from them this, literally the light. And so we see in Stellan pride, we see in Elzar, we see anger, right? We see these sort of what they're left with in terms of the negativity, and something that is essentially fear incarnate, I think works best without a like corporeal form or a lot of sort of specific lore surrounding it. Like, if we get origins, or like, I know a lot of people talk about, and I want to say, I think I was one of the first people to point out the Malachor, the temple, the bodies there, sort of seeing what they might look like, right? Like, I'm okay with getting backstory on it and how it's been used over the centuries, etc. But I like that it was kept vague, because that, I think, is where the power comes from, is that we, like the Jedi, don't know what this is, and it is, taking away the very thing that seemingly makes them Jedi. So I thought that was really effective. I kind of ragged on Mark Thompson's voice a little bit earlier, so I will say he narrates these scenes of the Jedi coming into contact with the leveler very, very effectively. They are very tense, and I felt sort of the pain and the fear in the characters as they were being affected by it. I don't really know. It's been a while since I have listened to it. I don't have a physical book, so in terms of why Indira survived, the only thing I can think of is plot reasons. But I do appreciate that she did survive, and that Bill didn't need that necessarily. He was able to like have that moment of leaving her when he still needed the Jedi still needed him. But I'm glad that he doesn't have to deal with that, because that would have been a bit much, I think, for his character. But I also appreciate talking about characters who've quickly become my favorite. Elzar Mann has very quickly become my second favorite Jedi, and I think it is because unpopular opinion, I actually think he has very similar motivations to Obi-Wan, and that the Jedi Order is the most important thing to him, despite tragedy, and he continues to sort of reassert his commitment to it, and him having to take over leadership when Stellan gets semi-leveled is very effective, and I think we can talk about his character in more depth, but I liked seeing him sort of take the reins and take charge as well throughout this section. I could talk about him forever, but I'll stop there.
I mean, you left briefly, but if seeing how you feel, highly recommend picking up Star Wars 2020 from the comics.
I have read Star Wars 2020. My profile picture on Discord is Elzar Mann sitting on a mushroom stool. So I am. That was for a lot of. I mean, I don't think I've been as emotionally affected by something as reading that and sort of seeing the vindication of seeing Elzar say, like, I want to see what I can do to help people and be a Jedi. And I'm like, I know that's what you want, and it's hard. And seeing him speak to Luke specifically was like, it did feel like someone said, would you like a comic for you? And I was like, yes, thank you. And then I took it and read it. So absolutely. If you haven't, I mean, yeah, you don't think you need to be caught up on that run. It's Luke searching for Jedi artifacts and texts. Like, you can jump in pretty quickly, but it's really, really good. And I'm kind of in disbelief that it exists. I went to a comic book store today to try to get a physical copy. Actually, they didn't have one, so I'm not actually sure it's real yet. I've only seen digital version. I've only read a digital version, so I will be picking up a physical copy when I can.
I think my favorite panel from that issue is when he says, "You don't have to be a Jedi, but if you do, we're all here." And like we see here. Like Qui-Gon, Avar, Elzar, we
Obi-Wan,
see Stellan, everyone.
That made me feel quite vindicated, because he describes the Order as like a framework to understand the Force and to work towards the light. And I'm like, I have been saying all this time.
Fern's sayings is canonized.
Vindicated.
Yeah, and it was coming out of Elzar's mouth, and I had just been explaining that I think the Order is so central to his character, and like he needs to stick with it. And so Fern and I together got exactly what we wanted, where Elzar was saying the things that Fern says, and together it's like it was a dream. So very satisfying for both of us.
Yeah. What about you, Sawyer? Your highlights for part 2?
So
I mean, lows too. Oh, quick story about part 2, by the way. I was rereading it and I wasn't there. I hadn't gotten back to that part yet, but the book slipped out of my hand. I caught it, but I ripped the page. The page was the end of chapter 17.
Wow.
Resume, Sawyer.
So at the beginning of this show, I put Fallen Star on a pedestal next to Revan, and the one thing that these two books have in common was they are the only pieces of Star Wars media to ever instill genuine terror in me. And if a piece of Star Wars, like something about that doesn't compute in my brain, and I think it's because Star Wars is so much more fantasy than, say, like Star Trek. Like there's a lot more of like, I don't want to say realistic, that's not the right word, but there's a lot, like there's Earth in Star Trek, and there's a lot of like human conflicts that happen in Star Trek that we don't see so often in Star Wars. There's more fantastical elements to Star Wars, and so if a Star Wars book can scare me, that's a triumph. And boy, I do think, especially for those of us who are more visual, and maybe you, Fern and Julia, will see this if you read the physical copy, but the descriptions of the Leveler and the encounters that the Jedi that met their fate with it, like it written, was bone chilling, truly. But what I wasn't expecting, besides all the death, was the part that got me, that I wouldn't have expected to get me the most, was there when Markion sends these Nihil to all of these different random planets to start, bringing people back. He sends this one group to the Jedi Temple, which I think happens around the beginning of part 2, so that's why I'm bringing it up now. But rarely does like literature or a specific line in literature make me feel something, and that, oh, Master, should we tell them we're under attack? No, tell them we are gone, and then they're gone. And that was before anybody had died from the Leveler, and I was like, oh. And I was so taken aback by that line and by that part that I actually read it to my boyfriend, who could not care less about Star Wars and thinks that me reading these books are like, how good can these really be? I read that to him out loud, and he was like, oh my god. Yeah, so that's the part I think in part 2, besides Orla's death, that really stood out to me. But then we get Orla, and we'd already lost Reginald at that point, and Dira had, to answer the question you asked earlier, Pep, I mean, I think it's more of like from a lore standpoint, yes, Julia's right, it's just for the plot, but from like a lore perspective, it's because she interacted with the Leveler to the same degree I think Keeve did in the comics. That's at least my interpretation of it. But
do you think that there's an inherent distinction between someone who tries to fight it and someone who just like kind of is overwhelmed so much that they detach like subconsciously from the Force and like survive it?
No, and the reason I say that is because as we were losing more and more people, they kept going down there thinking, I'm gonna face this, and they couldn't once they encountered it. I think it's more of a, maybe the Leveler can only have one victim at a time type situation. I don't know. That's kind of my like perspective. Now that we know it's a living creature, I would say.
I mean that's also my perspective, and they kind of said that in it, that they got feelings of satiation from it.
Yeah.
Versus feelings of this thing is hungry. So it can only have like it just had an entree in it.
Yeah.
It's a holiday season and you've already gained some weight, and it's like swimsuit season's coming up, so it's gotta stay svelte.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, I think I obviously, you know, Reginald was written for the sole purpose of being the first victim. But I could not. I have this terrible, terrible habit of checking to see when a chapter is over. And when you do that, you spoil yourself. And I saw the lines of, you know, the last thing that remained of Orla Drenny was fear, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me right now. But I finished the chapter, and the first thing I did was message Pat, because I was like, no, like what? I feel like I get in this habit of picking a favorite character who is like the least likely to die. Or because generally speaking, I pick more obscure, not main characters, with the exception of Ben Solo. But that was kind of anticipated, you know, you kind of, oh, you know, Kylo Ren, he's gotta go. But rarely do I, you know, because I go for these obscure characters or non-main characters, do I have someone so dear to me just like die. And I was so unprepared for that. And I've told people this already, but I stopped reading for the day. I was like, nope, I cannot. Not happening. And I like immediately called Hannah because she's not reading these books and she doesn't really think she's going to. And I was like, I swear, if they take Elzar from me, oh man, thank God they didn't. But I don't think I've ever had to, like, it's like turning off the TV. I don't think I've ever had to do that with a book before.
Yeah.
But I did not come back to it until the next day because I was super angry. But again, Marquis Rowe, he knows what he's doing. And I am genuinely like 100, being the Sith of the lore people world, I can genuinely tell you that we are pathetic compared to the Nihil. I don't think there's a single Sith in Star Wars canon that rivals the might and the terror that the Nihil bring to these, you know, when we started with Light of the Jedi, we have, you know, like we say, oh, they're pirates. Well, okay, what can they do? And obviously we knew by now that wasn't, like, we know they're capable of stuff, but yeah, I had that thought in reading this second part. Because even Palpatine, you know, he mostly just cares that the people who are his enemies are dead. And, you know, if other people die alongside it, whatever. He wants to rule. Markion is just like, yes, kill everybody. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is a more terrifying villain. So that's where I'm at with that. So. And
that's a good distinction to make, right? Because, thanks to issue 20 of Star Wars 2020, we got another reference to Bane, and I feel like there's this huge difference between anarchists and the Sith, who are evil by nature and by motivation, but they're still endeared to the Force. It's an incorrect interpretation of the Force, but they're still endeared to this one kind of monolith, whereas the Nihil are just like, just wreck shit, you know. And it's hard to fight against that.
Yeah. I'll just briefly say, like you were saying, Sawyer, of like, you feel like we try to like logic out who's gonna die, right? Like even the way they were promoting this book, like who will survive, right? And I think there's a sense of like the randomness of who dies, not that everyone who dies is random, I think that is on purpose. Like Mark doesn't care which Jedi he kills, really. He just wants to kill Jedi. And I think that like that is scary, right? The idea that what are his motivations, and you know, I've read the first Eye of the Storm, and it seems like it's even after reading that, it's really hard. It's almost like someone having such a different worldview from you that you can't even comprehend what it is they want. And with the Sith, I feel like, I mean, I don't know anything really about them, but it seems like you can kind of understand what they want or what they're trying to achieve. What is Mark want? Like, he wants to be left alone, but he also wants to rule the galaxy, right? He even has these like internal struggles in terms of like, he doesn't really seem to know what he wants. He just likes to cause chaos. It's very Joker, right? Of like, he just seems to like enjoying messing with things. And I think that is really interesting. And it really means that no one is safe because he's not going after specific people at this point, right? Like in the Rising Storm, he just needed Jedi to test stuff on, right? So it's whoever happens to be there, and it's not even personal, which I think is scarier almost, because you can't really protect someone if you don't know they're in danger. And yeah, I thought that was really, really effective, and I'm excited to read the book because it was scary, but I think our own minds can always make it scarier than what someone actually sort of like reads, for example.
One thing I'll add before we pass it off to Fern, is just that, you know, you guys know what my favorite weapons are in Star Wars, or force powers. So it was, as much as I hate it. Is that
Darth Nihilus? I gotta at least once, you know?
Okay, but nothing tops when I was on Nerd Council and like out of nowhere, Choco just comes with, he printed out like a nihilist mask. Like, no, he just did that for no reason.
It was good times.
And Brian like screenshotted it right at the perfect moment where I'm like, no, I mean, I just, the thought bomb and the ritual anathema, and that stealing the Force away. Now that we have not only a canon thing, but a creature who can do that. Like, ugh, I love it. I hate it. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah. And just like all of this talk about Markion, or Mark, as Julia says, being a Joker, I just think about Michael Caine.
Mark. That's not...
Some people just like to watch
That's
the
not us.
Wild
That's Roop Helps. I think Roop Helps were the first people to call him Mark, but I like it.
Fern, your part 2 highlights?
Yeah, I second so much of what Julia and Sawyer said. But I am also really like invested in the idea of the Force being taken from Jedi. And I will say, like, I haven't like intellectualized this for myself. I haven't thought about like, I'm aware that there are probably narrative reasons or thematic reasons why that appeals to me. But in general, I just find it delicious. Like, I find it really interesting I think partially because it is scary. It's terrible. It's like this existential threat to a Jedi, but it is very distant from us. It's not like, body horror. It's not like a threat that I myself have to be worried about. And yet the experience of being cut off from something really important, whether it's like a support system or a community or a system of faith or whatever else, is something that most of us can relate to. Like, we've been in that position at some point. And so I think that is probably like why it appeals to me. It's horrible, but it is a kind of horror that I can handle. And I think there's often this very thin line between something that's like angsty and difficult, and then something that is, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on the podcast, so like tell me if I'm not, but like essentially torture porn, right? Characters who are just made to suffer because they're being made to suffer, and that's it. I can't I really I don't enjoy characters being made to suffer simply because they are being made to suffer. It's something I like really don't enjoy in fiction. And so there was, I think like this middle section sort of toes that line because these Jedi just keep getting thrown at the leveler and we know how it's going to end. It's going to end either in their death or in
we didn't know though. I had so much faith. I had so much faith in Orla. Like the way they set up Orla in the beginning, I was like, she's the answer. She can fight this. And then as I was reading that part, I'm like, she can still fight this. And then I read that last sentence, and this is the first time I got up and I paced my room, and then I messaged Choco and I was like, where are you in this book right now?
And they had sent it to my other address.
No.
That's why I didn't receive it. They had sent it, but to the wrong place, which is super weird because they have sent me books to my current address. Like both, because there's two production companies, right? But this is the one that sent me Tarkin specifically to this house. The hell. Anyways.
Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, no, but so yeah, we didn't know for certain at first, but after the first death, like it becomes really clear what the pattern is going to be, and I think that towed the line for me of I almost reached a certain point of feeling like this is just like unnecessary suffering. This is just like throwing bodies at a problem, and we know that no good can come of this. But we didn't quite get there. And so what we got instead were characters like Stellan having to wrestle with both like physical and emotional imbalance, which I was saying on our episode of our SWEnglish class episode about this book that I related to quite a deal because I just recovered from like a horrible bout of vertigo. And I recognize how important physical and emotional balance is now. But Claudia Gray is so skilled at like providing interiority, providing insight into characters' thoughts and feelings, and oftentimes like we talk about plot driven versus character driven stories, and I think that's kind of a false dichotomy, but like we like the Stellan's conflict is the plot in a lot of sections of this book, and like that's what we get because of what happened. Like that's what we get because of the levelers plural level I the leveler puppies
Can we really quick talk about, because we learned about certain animal species and what they're called in a group.
Yes, I loved that section.
I'm trying to remember all of them, but specifically a group of Rathars is called a remorse.
Yes.
A group of droids is called a tinker of droids. I love that one. A group of Jedi was called an illumination. And there's two more, and I
like
can't
Jay's,
think of them right now. Real quick, I'm just going to do a hard prediction. Is that once we deal with 150 years ago, we're going to jump 50 years into the future. Less than 50, probably 20. And I think the real people to deal with it is, I think Zine. I think Zine's going to be super important because Zine knows what it is to be cut off from the Force completely and still be able to act.
Hey, Choco?
Yeah.
You finished Midnight Horizon. Thank you.
All right. You heard it here first, guys. Midnight Horizon. It's coming out soon. Check it out.
Yeah, February.
February 1st.
Also, like, Nibasik. Like, so many people losing their masters. And, like, Briaga didn't even have any time to, like, mourn ritually. Like we know in canon that they have a ritual where they mourn by themselves in isolation, but Burry wasn't afforded that, and like Belle was like, we gotta go, like we gotta do this thing, and that was really rough. And I thought, I thought when the Ataraxia arrived, I was like, oh, they're saved.
I will say I have really enjoyed the way the High Republic era has like come together like pieces of a puzzle. That kind of storytelling is really satisfying to me. However, every so often I get the sense that like a book is maybe like not given, like there are things happening aboard the Ataraxia that I feel like we needed to get a full picture of what was happening on Starlight Beacon that I assume is going to be revealed to us in the comics. But it felt like we were missing a piece of the puzzle, specifically like what was going on with Avar during all of this. And that was one of my like few frustrations with this book. And by no fault of like Claudia Gray's, no fault of anyone's, just like the nature of the way this story is being told is that we're missing a really big piece of the puzzle here. And we just get like these glimpses of Avar's perspective, enough to like tease us, but not enough to really know exactly what is going on.
Are you up to date with the comics?
I haven't really read the comics other than like occasionally in various Discord servers tuning in when people are reading them out loud. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was fun. We should do that again.
We definitely will. We could do that with Hive the Storm.
Even
too.
Fern joined? Oh, I'm sad. I was sad.
Yeah, it was for issue 1 and 2, I believe, or issue 1. But yeah, if you get up to issue 12, you'll like, we don't know what happens with Avar and the Ataraxia leading up to Fallen Star, but ending off with issue 12, you know that what she's setting out to do, and that's where she goes.
Yeah, but there is a fine line between projects that give you cliffhangers in order to sell more products versus ones that do it for the storytelling purposes of, no, this book is about this story, this is about this story, these are simultaneous stories. So there is a fine line. I don't feel like the High Republic is on the negative side of that line at all. But yeah, it's something that you do have to watch, and it can go that way pretty quickly. Real quick, there's a specific moment, because we were talking about Orla, when she turns to Stellan and she's like, you've never thought, like when they have it out of like why he doesn't trust her as a way seeker, you need to be part of the order, you could be doing so much, and she's like, you have never considered who you are outside of the order, you're just kind of their lapdog at this point in time. And he's like, true, but damn.
When you put it that way.
And he has to self-reflect of like, am I who I am because they keep putting, I'm just filling this, I'm like water filling the shape of whatever they put on me, or is this who I am, this is what I want to do? I've never thought about it as. And then Stellan also has that line about Elzar and Avar of, we've been three of a kind, but you guys have shared this bond that I didn't. I don't know, some of those things like hit me deep. This book, God, I feel like I'm talking this book into being my favorite, but because where this book touches on the Force is profound, and where it touches on the Jedi as an organization is profound, and where it touches on personal relationships between these people is profound, and self-reflection. Damn.
Yeah.
Was that your part too?
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Not exactly, but Sure. Yes. That's my part too. This is my city.
I mean, my city. Yeah.
No. Real quick though, to kind of round out my part two. I can't wait to see what all happened on the other side of the, of the station. But it's interesting because I feel like this reminds me of it makes me think of the prequels, but in a different light. Because in the prequels, there's a lot of criticism about the Jedi, like they should have done this, and they should have done this. Or no, it's always you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. But it's like, what should you have done? And this really is like, listen, if we do this, this is what happens. If we do this, this is what happens. We cannot do all of it. We have to make choices. And we have to learn how to live with those choices. And everyone is on the same page. When they get the call from the planet of like, hey man, we might have to just shoot you guys and vaporize the station so we don't have people die down here. And he's like, yeah, I get that. I get that. No, this is what happens when the Jedi are caged so well. The only person to do it better that we know of was Palpatine. They were in a cage. They were in a no-win situation, and they're forced to make decisions. And I feel like a lot of that turns into like Jedi hate or whatever, and it's odd, but like it's when you're in a situation and there's no winning, all you can think about is minimizing the damage and saving who you can, how you can.
Yeah.
Fern and I are watching The Good Place. I'm rewatching it. Fern is watching The Good Place for the first time.
I haven't seen it yet. I've been meaning to join you guys on this because of your secondary podcast. It's a second podcast, right?
Our secondary podcast that only exists on TikTok Live.
3 episodes of The Good Place.
3 episodes of The Good Place and 1 episode of The Adventure Zone, a project in which we watch 3 episodes of The Good Place and follow it up with 1 episode of the hit podcast, The Adventure Zone. All right, sorry, Julia, go on.
Correct. No, I was just going to say there's a moment, I won't say who, there's a moment where, so it's philosophy and ethics comes up and they talk about the trolley problem, and a character at one point says, like, I've solved the trolley problem. It's not about choosing to kill 1 person or kill 3 people. It's about choosing to sacrifice yourself. And I do think Claudia Gray watched that episode and said, I've done it. I've solved the trolley problem. Because there's this, where they're like, well, where do we crash the station? Like, we're going to hurt people if we do this. We're going to hurt people if we do that. And then eventually, unfortunately, a character has to make a decision that is not about which kind of, destruction they're going to cause. And I think that I get, like, really Choco hits home, and I'm sure Fern agrees, where like I saw a lot of really negative reactions to this book in terms of the philosophy of it. And despite the fact that this is a very dark, sad book, it is also incredibly at the end there is this like there are more of us moment where it's clear, and I said this to Fern, and I don't know if this is going to make sense to anyone else, even after the tragedy and incredible loss and like this obvious victory for Mark, at the end of this book, my thought was, he can't win. He doesn't realize it yet, but he can't win. Like, I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, but I had this overwhelming sense of like, he doesn't realize that he can't win. And I really feel like the fact that I still have that sense of hope is to the credit of knowing what the Jedi are doing their best and like understanding the difficult position they're in. So you like just really put words to how I was feeling about the Jedi in this. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And as we move,
I need to catch up on Good Place.
And as we move into part 3, I do want to bring up something that Xanatos 1138 said earlier, which we are about to hit on, is that Burry is still alive, I am convinced, till I see a body. And so we move into part 3, where basically Elzar and Burryaga are, helping people escape through the cargo bay. And they're attacked by Rathtars, and they have to deal with all kinds of issues, but essentially Burryaga gets lost in the shuffle, and they do not... He's presumed dead by them. So, Choco, start us off with part 3 now. What are your highlights on that?
Yeah, jumping into part 3, we get a lot of we get some interesting things from Nan and Chansey when it's listen, we're temporarily aligned like this person was your enemy. That's not relevant to what's happening right now. Let it go, walk it off. I just kind of thought that was interesting. But like the scene that really hit me the hardest, I guess there's a couple of them, but when Elzar is going down in the ship and he's getting closer to the leveler and he passes right past him and sees it, the way that was written was bone chilling to me. I was so uncomfortable at that part because of how well it was written. My goodness. Yeah. We also got Geode standing firm. You know, we had the setup, and then they expertly capitalizes on it. Geode shoots second, but he never misses. Was just amazing. Also, I got Heir to the Empire vibes. Well, specifically, the Dark Force Rising vibes from that, where Luke is working with Jorah Sabayoth. Yes, I say Sabayoth. Leave me alone.
Kabath.
And and Mara comes to rescue him, and she has a frame with an Islameria on her back, and so there's a little conflict there. And as she walks up to Luke, all of a sudden he feels brighter and like just better in every way, and he realizes that he's been being dominated and controlled this entire time to feel numb, to feel sluggish, to feel tired, so he would be more easily manipulated. And in that, the absence of that, it was just so clear. And having Bell experience that when he flies away, and then when he starts coming back, and you feel the fear like slowly trickling in, and now he can't recognize his controls. I know. I just love that. Love that scene as well. There's so much to love about this. The end of this, and Bro's speech at the end. It's just brilliant. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Why don't we start with Fern this time?
Yeah, it was, I think collectively knew that it was going to be a difficult, like a challenging end to the book, that it was going to, end tragically. And I actually am going to give up my spot right now because I want to hear other people talk about this first before I jump in with my thoughts, because they're not really like clear to me yet, and I think I'm gonna need to bounce off some other people. So come back to me.
Okay. Sawyer.
Okay. I think I haven't really talked about Bell yet in my analysis of this book, and I think this was his part of the book to shine the most. I mean, I loved his relationship developing with Buryaga, and that. I mean, I've always loved Buryaga, but I was so happy that he got like real screen time here. And I'm just sitting there going like, you are a Jedi Knight. Stop it. This has been there for a while now, but there's no question. Just take the title. You don't need to do trial. Like, they're just gonna give it to you. You've earned it at this point. So especially like I feel, part 2 is filled with such dread and just like hit after hit after hit. And so when Bell realizes he can, separate the medical tower and have it be drawn in by the ship, it was just this moment of like fresh air, for us to all like breathe and be like, oh my gosh, something is happening, and for someone is getting off this ship alive, and then for him to go back in to find Buryaga. I think a lot of people were super convinced, including myself, that after watching Loden fall victim to the leveler, that Belle was gonna start to head to the other direction. And just, it was a shock in the beginning of the book to have him like hear his internal thoughts about losing Loden, and how that actually strengthened his connection in some ways to the light, where a lot of people I think thought it was going to go the opposite. And so, you know, him being able to, you know, act on instinct when he hears Loden's voice in his head, turn around, this is not your time to go. So I think Belle was probably my favorite part of this end here. But another highlight for me was Leox. I think he had the most development of all the vessel crew in this. Geode had his moments, you know, but I think in Into the Dark, that's Affy's story for sure. And I really, really liked that Claudia took some time to give Leox his spotlight. And I thought he was gone. I mean, I'd been conditioned, I think we all did. We'd been conditioned at that point to be like, oh my God. And I was kind of thinking, you know, like, okay, they've killed all of these people in these other departments. They have to take a member of the vessel along with them. Otherwise, it's not a complete story of death.
Do you think when he landed, he was like, well, how'd it do? I'm back. You know,
it's like that meme where
Yosemite Sam.
no,
it's like that meme where of Han Solo in the hospital bed, and he's texting Ben, and he's like, "I lived, bitch." But no, I mean, I really, really loved his character development, and that they gave him a moment to be a hero, because he hadn't had that chance yet. Not that he wasn't by like association, but like I just really loved, and this narrative of like doing things the old-fashioned way, which, you know, they find a way to incorporate that through the whole book, and then they have this, you know, you don't even think you're worried about Buryaga at this point. You're worried about, you know, Elzar, like all these other people, like, are they gonna die? But he comes back, and then, like, I don't know. I really, really appreciated his whole story throughout this book, and that was a really great way to end it. And I was not expecting Coley Lynn to die at all, let alone that way. But man, it just felt so good.
Yeah. I mean, you don't expect it, but also you want it, so. Because, I mean,
I think someone mentioned earlier that, you know, they had the setup with, oh, you know, he can make himself magnetically sealed whenever he wants. I did not think that was gonna, like, relate to something later. And, you know, he saves Wreath and Into the Dark, but this was more of a, like, smug, like... I don't know.
Gotcha, bitch. Like that's
so yeah, those are, I think, those two things. And then of course, because I can't attach myself to Star Wars or any, you know, fantastical media without finding a ship that I attach to very dearly. And I was so happy that Elzar and Avar are, you know, they're both at this point in their relationship with the Force where, I mean, you haven't read the comics yet, Fern, but you should, because I think that'll give you some more. It will give you more context there. But Avar has broken away a little bit from the position she was in Light of the Jedi, where she's, you know, as, you know, purist, I guess might be the correct term, to the values of the Order. Then she's not there right now,
or and Sterling.
Right, exactly, and not in a bad way. I don't think she or Elzar, especially not if he's in this comic that just came out, are in any danger of straying away. But, you know, in my heart, they are they are retiring on Naboo like they imagined they would be in Light of the Jedi. I've got my fingers crossed for that, but it probably won't happen exactly that way. But I after Light of the Jedi, I was like, okay, this was just a fleeting moment, but it's coming back around. I'm very happy about that. So.
I was laughing when you were talking about Geode because it made me think of a Rush Hour 2 moment. So they shoot him. He magnetically seals, and it just completely backfires. And then they're all like, "Why didn't you tell me this dude rolls like this?" Okay, Fern, are you ready or?
Yeah. Okay, so this was the portion in the SWEnglish class episode where I ranted a little bit, and I think I might do that one more time. But before I do, I want to say that I also loved everything that happened with the vessel crew in this final portion, and I did believe that Leox had died. However, I had this sense that Claudia couldn't really Claudia couldn't take him from us. She wouldn't take him from us. Anyone else, yes, sure, but she wouldn't take Leox from us. And I was very happy to be proven right.
Just real quick, I feel the same way. I feel like she wrote him to die, and it was like, no, he can't die. And it was like, and then he's back.
Especially after manifesting McConaughey into him.
Yeah. What I said to Julia, just like, on a phone call before we recorded our episode, was that he feels unkillable to me, not for plot armor reason, not because of like who he is as a character, but because he is simply so good that I can't imagine anyone writer being the one to pull the trigger. Like, they couldn't do it. They couldn't take him from us. So, but yeah, so there were two things about the end of this book that frustrated me, and I think there is the potential for both of them to be resolved in the comics, in other pieces of media surrounding this storyline. So I may be, happy in the future, but I do not disagree with the decision to kill Stellan. I think that narratively it made a lot of sense, and I think the fact that he was able to die really being a Jedi, even though his connection to the Force was limited at this point, he figured out what he needed to do in that moment, and he was able to do it. Was so important to me, and I think makes a ton of narrative sense. What frustrates me is the lack of closure around two particular relationships. The last time he speaks with Avar, he says some really cruel, terrible things to her, and we know it's because he is being influenced by the Leveler, and the worst traits are being brought out in him. But I wish that had been a conversation. I wish either they had been able to have some sort of conversation. I wish that we had a Firebrand reunion, that the three of them, Stellan and Avar and Elzar, had been able to see each other in person one last time. I'm on the polycule train, by the way. I think they're all in love with each other. And the fact that there is no resolution to that would maybe not have frustrated me so much if that was something that Elzar and Avar had discussed. If there was this sense of, unfinished business, right? The sense that Stellan left the world too soon, and there was unfinished business between him and Avar, and Avar would have to live with that. Avar would have to live knowing that, like, the last time she spoke to her very dear friend, he said some really terrible things to her. I would have been satisfied with that, but unfortunately it's never really resolved. We don't get a conclusion to that particular plot thread. Similarly, Vernestra Rowe is not in this book, and the relationship between Stellan and Vernestra and Imri has fascinated me for a very long time. It's very, very central to like my interest in the High Republic. I'm aware that I am probably the only person who is as invested in this relationship dynamic and this idea of like mentor and student, and Vernestra being sort of caught between like has she been, you know, just her particular position, having recently stopped being a student herself and now taking on a teaching role. Very interesting to me. The fact that we don't get to see her reaction to Stellan's death, and that she also had unfinished business with him. There were conversations she had been meaning to have with him that she had not yet gotten around to, and that she was going to let happen when the time was right. Specifically, you know, regarding like the modifications she made to her lightsaber, which it seemed like it had been set up as like a pretty central plot thread that she was working towards. The fact that we don't get to see that conclusion or that resolution hurt me very deeply. There's so much I love about this book. Those two threads just not being tied up at the end felt strange to me. I wish they had been, and I'm aware that like we might get more of that in the comics and other media. So it might just be that this was not the story where those threads got tied up. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
But there's also you can rationalize that by saying like the stories that deal with tragedy and pain often see things unresolved as a result. But before we get to Julia, I'm sorry, Julia, I do want to call out something, a conversation that's happening in the chat right now between Chris and Xanatos. CN, Ty, and Emmerich are the new polycule, says Chris. And if you've read Trail of Shadows, you know that. And what happened with Sawyer's camera?
This camera's just wild.
I just know that throughout this entire episode, I feel like the camera has been like listening to her talk, and now it's just like over there.
I'm just like, I want a bite of my food without distracting anything from anybody saying. No. Oh my god.
And then Lawyer says, Ty has no interest in being a part of Elzar's romantic constellation, the Pole Star. However, she may be interested in Avar's song. This is an interesting conversation.
Oh, for sure she is. I mean, she's already said it. She's like, oh, I like this part of your memories. He's like, stop looking. Well, I ain't looking at you, bro. I can take you or leave you. You know?
So I will just say this really quickly for my part. It was I was super angry with Elzar. Like this was part of his like character development and progression, coming back from like, you know, having trained with Orla. But like the moment he kills Chansey when she's about to save them was just so frustrating. Like it felt like one of those moments where it was like, yeah, that was going to if she had succeeded, this book would not have kind of delivered on its promise. And so I was just like, oh, Elzar, how could you do this? I
love that scene, to be honest.
I mean,
because
yeah.
you don't get to like be evil 100% of the time and then expect everyone to assume like, oh no, I'm doing the good thing this time. Like it didn't not. It sucks to like realize it, but like, well, it was the right mistake.
no, I love this scene too, and you know, I am reluctant to say I love scenes that make me angry, but that's just the consequence of reading stories. The stories that deliver on its promise and makes you feel or evocative of any kind of feeling that they promise is a successful story. And as an outsider looking in, having all of the information, you're just like, no, she's saving you. Of course, you feel that way, but Elzar doesn't have access to this information, and so he does it, and it just kind of frustrated me. I was like, damn it, Elzar, why did you have to do that?
Not to mention he had just had an encounter with, like, a very close encounter with the thing that was making him, you know, making people do the opposite of what they should be doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
I love that encounter so much.
But Julia, you're part 3.
Well, and we're already talking about Elzar. This is a perfect segue into hi, welcome to, this is no longer Dyad in the Force. This is Julia's Elzar podcast. Welcome to Julia's Elzar podcast, hosted by me, Julia. Today we'll be talking about Elzar. So I am obsessed with this type of character development. Speaking of like The Good Place, or, you know, when I tell people, for example, like, who's your favorite Game of Thrones character? I say Jaime Lannister, and they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, here's the thing. I am very much into characters who want to do the right thing or know they should be doing the right thing, but show just how hard it is to do that. I think we, as fans, tend to like really gloss over the difficulty that is choosing the light, right? And so we see someone like an Obi-Wan Kenobi who, frankly, we don't get a lot of his internal struggle in terms of like, I think there's a short story in the Clone Wars anthology short story collection where you actually see him wrestling with what he wanted to do after Maul killed Satine, and it's an Elzar moment. He's like, I'm gonna kill Maul, I'm gonna kill Savage, I'm gonna kill everyone in this room, and then when I've killed everyone in the palace, all of Mandalore will be on fire. Like in 0.5 seconds, that is immediately what happens in Obi-Wan's mind. And so I think we see examples in Elzar of someone who is trying so hard to do the right thing. And speaking of Star Wars 20, he talks about how growing deeper in his connection with the Force, he wants to do that because he wants to help people. And I think the tragedy is that it is difficult for him to do that. And I think in terms of like what makes a Jedi, the theme of this book is like, what is a Jedi without the Force? And I think it's choosing the light because it is the light. I think every single time Elzar does something, we have been trained by Star Wars to see as a going down a path you can't come back from. He refuses to be put in that box and immediately sort of asserts his need to confess, to do better, to recommit himself to the light. And I think in terms of character sort of choices here, this is the right move. As frustrating as it is the right move, because how kind of boring and unsatisfying would it be? Or also what message would it send to be like, well, we have one chance to get it right here and then all your problems are fixed. Like, that's just not true. That's not how it works. I think seeing Elzar struggling, for example, is like mental health issues. I can very much relate to this idea of like, this is going to be my whole life. I am going to have to my entire life work on this. And that doesn't mean that I can't help people or be a teacher or achieve my goals, but like realistically, this problem isn't going to just go away overnight. And so I have not related to a character as much as I have as I relate to Elzar, and it's really meaningful to me. I've never cut a woman in half, just to be clear. Not something I've done. This is not a confession. But I do know what it's like to do things and be like, man, my friends are going to be so disappointed. My family's going to be so mad at me. But like, it's really, I have a lot of feelings about his immediate responses being like, well, I took away from the galaxy a great light, and I'm just going to need to like be that thing for the galaxy. Like, that's how I'm going to make it up for what I've done. And like, I love him so much, and he's like my number 2 now, and I've known him for a year and Obi-Wan for 25 years, right? So it's pretty impressive how far he's rocketed up that list. This has been the Elzar Man podcast with me, Julia. Thank you for listening.
May the Force be with you.
I think
other things happen in this book, but like, yeah, I won't. If you want to hear my thoughts on the end of the book, you can listen to Star Wars English class. I won't infect everyone else with my brainworms, but
I was just gonna say, I think, we share this love for Elzar, and I think, like, touching on everything you just said, he, to me, is the most, how do I put this?
He's real.
Yes, Elzar is the closest thing we have in Star Wars to what it means to be human in this world, I think. And, we see that in Rising Storm, where he's, giving in to certain primal instincts, and, he's, and he wants to be good, and I think everybody wants, most people have a desire to be good and do the right thing, and it is hard. It is so difficult to do the right thing a lot of the time, and I think, some people say he's a foil for Anakin, and I can kind of see that, but I think that's what makes him stand out among the rest. This is a character who makes a lot of mistakes, but holds himself accountable. And that's something that we have to do in our everyday life. And generally speaking, when we think of the Jedi, they're either being punished by their fellow Jedi or by their consequences in a way that they can't dictate that. They don't get to decide what their actions lead to. And Elzar is not that. So that's, I don't know. That was just to add to your point. But I have a question.
I agree with you, though. Real quick, I don't think he's a foil to Anakin. I think Anakin is a cautionary tale. I think Obi-Wan is like, hey, this is what you should do. And I think Elzar is like, this is people. This is just what people do.
Yeah.
I feel like, just to add on
Elzar is crying between Obi-Wan and Anakin, like, I'm trying, I'm really I'm doing the best I can, please, I'm trying so hard. And like, that is also, Sawyer, accountability is that's, I guess, like, in my mind, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because he often does things that are like, no one would know that he did that thing that was bad. And he constantly, like, he doesn't hide like what he did in terms of giving into the dark in the Rising Storm. He knows he's going to have to tell Avar that he is partially responsible for like the loss of their dear friend. And like, it's almost like it's just so important to him to hold himself accountable. And I totally think you're right. And like, one of the things that makes him different is his refusal to, like, he immediately takes responsibility. And I just love the messiness of someone who's like, I did kill that woman. Like, killing a woman, turning around and then going, that was me, and that was a mistake. Like 2 seconds later, and it's like, oh my gosh. Like, if you could just like get it down to before this happens. But yeah, I love that accountability idea, Sawyer.
Yeah, and like, just to add on to what everyone else is saying, the now iconic phrase, if Qui-Gon had lived, Anakin would not have fallen. I add Elzar to that as well. And I'm not saying like Elzar dies. I'm saying like, well, he's not able to be alive during that time because it's 200 years, but if Elzar had lived during the prequel eras, I don't think the Jedi would have fallen. I don't think Anakin would have fallen. A lot of the Jedi from the High Republic would have saved the Jedi in the prequels,
or not letting it go. Well, that's the thing. Like, what still hasn't happened? At this point.
I know. Yeah.
But before
I think Gira is going to be Chancellor. Gira is going to be Chancellor.
Ooh.
Gira is going to be Chancellor. I think that's my big prediction in terms of like, she's going to say, Lena mess, look at how poor, like, this woman is not fit to be calls for a vote of no confidence, or maybe it's just she's up for re-election soon, or something. That's I think the next big move in terms of like, yeah.
If that happens, she will not serve a full term. Things will end pretty abruptly at some point. But I'm curious what Sawyer's question. You said
I have a question for Julia specifically, because I saw her leave a comment on this video. But the other day I saw a video that E.K. Johnston made on TikTok about Fallen Star and about the High Republic. Mm-hmm. And she said something about man pain. What is that? Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
So man pain is like a trope in fiction where like a man or a male character is like very angsty, and it's all sort of about their suffering or their man pain, for lack of a better word. I don't like it. I actually was talking to Fern recently about how like we do not allow, I don't think as a fandom, men in Star Wars to have complex emotions, and we really gloss over it. I think, for example, how we react to Anakin in the prequels is a great example of not allowing him to have the emotions of a 19-year-old that he's having, and being frankly repeating some like really poor attitudes in terms of like how we treat men and sharing their feelings. But I don't think that's what Elzar is doing. He is never feeling sorry for himself. So the guy, like a police officer character who like can't solve the murder of his wife and then like drinks himself, you know, slowly in his like pickups, like I'll get home to you soon or whatever. Like, and it's just about their pain. Elzar doesn't think on his pain. Like, I just don't. That's not what's going on in his head, in my mind. Like,
Right.
I feel like we didn't read different books, but like, I just fundamentally don't think he fits that. I could see surface level sort of the tropes, but the fact that his internal monologue isn't about feeling sorry for himself. It's about recognizing that he needs to do better, or thinking about his connection to the Force, or realizing that like, oh, I love Avar, and like that can be dangerous even though it's not a negative feeling. He is incredibly thoughtful. And so I just think it doesn't fit the bill.
I would agree with you, but
you know,
I thought you were agreeing with her, and I was like, what? Like, wait, I don't
Oh no. I was saying not the man pain as like of the pun of like man pain, but his last name is Man. So I was like, I was more speaking of the pun, but yeah, it's hard to kind of say on.
I thought
I would just like a.
Ugh, I'm sick of it already. And so then when you came on and you were like, I love Elzar, I'm like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, no,
I
I am the leader of the Elzar Main Defense Squad.
Good.
You're more than welcome. I was groaning at the pun, but yeah, that didn't come across in the text. So
Dyad in the Force, building bridges.
Just to add to that, man pain is fixed pretty easily by therapy. Elzar doesn't fit the bill because Elzar seeks therapy readily.
Elzar is in therapy, which I think is really important. Again, I could talk about him forever. I just think the High Republic's unwillingness to put him in like an easy to fit, easy to categorize place as a Jedi is really satisfying, because every move you expect him to make based on your past experience in Star Wars, you're wrong, and I love that. And I really don't want to jump ahead that much further. Our friend Mel Rupalps at Grunkle Rex on TikTok has suggested that maybe the first wave will be 150 years back, but it will be almost like Reith is going to be studying, going in the past, and then the next two waves will be back in the present, maybe a year or two later. I would prefer that because, like Fern, there are a lot of cliffhangers here, and you're going to really have to convince me of a good reason why we're not picking up with Avar and Elzar, why we're not picking back up with Vernestra. Like, these are characters we are invested in, so you're gonna have to give me a good reason to go back and maybe not pick up super soon. So I really hope it's just wave one, to be completely honest, because I think there's a lot of character development, a lot of plot threads that we need to pick up on directly, personally. But I'll shut up now.
Here's my rationalization for what they're doing with these phases, and I think I made a video on it once or twice, but I feel like the next phase is going to be 150 years prior to be the prequels, and then the next phase after that is going to be the sequels. So they're doing this thing like they did with the original saga, where it's the original, and then they have the prequels, and then they go back to the like sequels of the originals. And the reason I think that they need to do that is to set things up historically for the leveler, and for anything that we might encounter in the sequel to this current phase that we're in. So I think that they are going to do that. I think the next phase is going back. We're going to see some, as Choco mentions, Mari Santeca. We're going to see some leveler history. We're going to see some Marchion Ro history, some Asgar. And then after that, phase 3, or one of the waves in phase 2, is going to go back to like right where Midnight Horizon ends. And that's when they're going to rejoin that story. At least that's what I think. Anyways,
I mean, I feel like they aren't going to join it there. They're going to jump ahead of that, and you know, it'll be like, now playing the role of Stellan Gios is Bell Zedivar. You know, I think we're going to come back to a time where Bell.
No, I think the first line
knight and has been a knight for like 5 to 8 years, and we're gonna we're gonna get that crop of Jedi. We're gonna get DJO's crop of younglings as adults.
I think
I'm okay with like 5 years. There's so much to pick up on in terms of like direct consequences that anything more than that, I don't know that they're going to have to convince me pretty hard.
I think that time jump happens mid-wave. And I'm gonna make a huge like big predict here. In the first book of phase of whenever it picks up is Markion's speech. And it's gonna, that prologue is gonna end with him being like, "The galaxy is mine," and then it continues the story. And then mid-wave, we're gonna rejoin the adventurers crew, Zine and Lula, when they're like 20 or 18, and then they've grown up throughout that time gap. Yeah, that's my hard prediction. I'm placing.
Yeah, I just think
it.
ending with Mark's speech like that, the fact that we wouldn't see immediate reactions to that is strange to me. Like, I would be very surprised by that, but I do need to stop talking, so I will stop talking. But it just seems like they left it at a very direct reaction type of spot. So,
well, we also additionally can't really discount the fact that we got a few more writers coming onto the High Republic recently, like 4 or 5 more people. I don't know what that means. That's too much content.
No,
I'm gonna die.
That's not too much at all. We do have a question from Malik, though, who asks, who do you think is going to be the one to take down Markion? And I'm going to go first with my quick answer, Zine and Crix. Any answers from you guys? From anyone else?
I have a joke answer, but it's I won't.
Are you gonna say your cursed thing? You haven't said it yet.
No, I won't say my cursed thing. I won't say my cursed thought. I think it will. I'm like, the more I think about it, the more because I think, Choco, if you're right and we jump ahead that far, it's just becoming more and more of a reality. And I can see the pieces fitting into my brain. So we're just gonna act like that's not a possibility.
There's a cursed. Julia has a cursed prediction. It's not cursed.
It's more like
it's a prophecy that like was beamed into her brain.
It was beamed into my brain.
Long-standing tradition here. I don't do predictions. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Should be delightful, but I have no idea who's going to take down Markion Rome.
Tradition upheld.
It's Yoda.
Love.
It's Yoda. He's been missing this entire time, and then someone's gonna face off, and then he's just like, and you're just like,
I
the hell you
so
been?
Unsatisfied with that, though.
But he's like,
I
was in that planter phase.
I mean, I feel like Yoda is as wise as he is because he hasn't been around. Like, he's just off learning shit. You know what I mean? He's just like the Jedi Order is suffering, and he's like, oh, new species, and then just like is connecting with another culture, and then
busy I am.
Yeah,
Automatic replies on my email setup have.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, in all of the adult books, Bell Zettifar has been a key player, and I can't see. I mean, yeah, they could get rid of him. It would make it feel hollow, but I mean, I feel like Bell is being set up as the person that's going through. I feel like all of these stories are largely being told as Bell Zettifar origin story, and he's gonna end up being like just the beast, like just a badass Jedi who's learned from all of these greats. And I think he's has to be the one to face down the Eye of the Nile. Who that is at that point in time will remain to be seen. I feel like for some reason I have this feeling that Markion Ro is dying. He has some sort of disease, and that's forced him to accelerate his plans and all of this stuff. That's why he seems out of control, but he knows what needs to be done, and he's trying to do it as fast as he can. For some reason, I just feel.
I half like that, but half like that's so tropey. Like, like the villain that's gonna die anyway. You know what I mean? But
the villain with nothing to lose.
Oh well, Julia, your audio is.
Oh.
Does that happen normally?
Yeah, it does. I think she knows how to fix it. Hang on.
Mark Inro can kick rocks, says Chris, with no socks.
I
don't
hope
know,
all
I
of his
feel
Legos are on the
Joyce.
floor.
Is it still bad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second here. I'm getting a new. My computer is 5 years old, so it's very. I'm getting a new computer literally tomorrow, so.
Oh wow. I think
Hopefully that will.
It sounds better. Yeah.
It does sound better now, yeah.
I think. Okay, yeah, I'm getting a new computer literally tomorrow, so hopefully this poor old baby is gonna be retired and go to a farm upstate with all the other computers. So.
Poor unfortunate PC.
What were you saying before then though?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm waiting for Lorna to just be like, surprise, I bet you thought you'd seen the last of me. And turn back up and just, I mean, if Mark is dying, I know how and who's gonna do it. It's all like, I think, you know, that's a possibility. And I can see it being this kind of like Deus Ex Lorna D moment where they're like, oh, where she becomes this unwitting ally by killing Mark, and then being like, well, yeah, I still am gonna cause problems, but like he sucks, and like almost like not, I don't even think like a actual alliance necessarily, unless you get like a Silvestri maybe sort of returning because she has a personal relationship with her, but like I can definitely see a like Deus Ex Lorna D situation because she's coming
Which I
back,
actually
you know what I mean?
think would be really satisfying because we kind of dip our toes into this concept in The Fallen Star of, well, what if the bad guys actually save the day, right? What if Chansey and Nan, who are ex-Nile, but like Nan at least still has some sense of allegiance to them, like what if they're the ones to save everyone? And Chansey sort of thinks about how like the Republic would probably lie about that. The Republic would probably not be honest in order to maintain a certain narrative, but like she would know and that would be satisfying. And the idea that that could be like seen through to its sort of conclusion, like I don't know if that's the direction they'll take things in, but I would definitely like to see the repercussions of that.
I'm just imagining a recreation of Dark Disciple where Markion is about to stab Wreath and Nan takes him down.
You're not allowed to put Wreath in even theoretical danger. Get out.
Well, I mean,
Nan's like, but I love him now. I don't know what happened.
but don't hurt him.
Like the beginning of that sounded like Zero the Hutt. Just saying.
Sawyer, do you have a prediction as to who's gonna take down Markion?
Yes, I think it would be a complete betrayal of the High Republic if it was one person that took him down. This is a story about the Jedi collaborating with each other to do the best they possibly can, and I think if we have... I just don't... I would be upset. I think we're gonna see Belle, for sure, and probably some, depending on when it takes place, some of the younglings now that are as they get older, but I can't see that. I would feel it would leave a bad taste in my mouth if that final like defeat was not a collaborative effort. So that is my prediction.
Okay, that just broke me because now by you saying that makes me feel like it has to be Elzar. But it's a very Goku Spirit Bomb moment of
Just like the cargo bay.
It would, yes, it would be a reprise of the cargo bay, but specifically with all of the Jedi, and I feel like now you saying that makes me feel like the end of it has to come down to a mission with Bell and Elzar, and the realization of Bell of, if I kill him, it will be for revenge.
Yeah.
I can't do that, but I can give you my energy, my support, my spirit, and everyone else does that. And then Elzar goes, share your energy with me, and then spirit bombs the Gaze Electric.
Think about the introduction of the leveler. That was Elzar and Bell as well on Gazelle, or what's that place called?
I don't know, but shout out to Gazelle. She does Star Wars reactions, reactions of all kinds on YouTube. Haven't had her on here yet, but will soon.
But now I just have a fun desire to see Court go head to head with Markion. She's like, I'm blue, you're blue. Let's just throw down, like right now. No? Okay.
Fern and I on our episode did talk about how Fern, did you mention this when I was AWOL about how Leox is indestructible?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Like, I think this thing, I also feel the same way about Court. Like, it's for plot reasons that Court hasn't met Mark, because he's doomed. You know what I mean? Same thing with Leox. Leox would show up and like saunter in and be like, I don't know. I don't think he's capable of that. So that would be very dangerous.
Court would be like, this isn't even my final form. And then takes off his face, and there's another face behind it, and he gets a power boost. And you're like, what? What?
So if you guys have any final thoughts on Fallen Star, feel free to inject them here. I am now going into open forum for the next 7 minutes. I'm arbitrarily ending this podcast at 30 because we are this is the longest podcast we've had in a long time, and I'm not opposed to it because this is Fallen Star. This is the High Republic, and it requires more than an hour and a half. So yeah.
What if the Jedi make the Gaze Electric fly into a star, much like they did the container in the first book?
That was a spirit bomb moment too. And that way,
I was
at
gonna
least,
say, what if it? Oh.
Well, just really quickly, that way at least that would be Yoda again, still being off wherever the hell he is. He's like, "Oh, feel your song, I do," and then he helps, and he just has participation trophy for that, you know.
Well, it could end the same way it began, by doing that, you know. So.
Yeah. And in that moment, Yoda is holding a little baby Plo Koon in his arms.
Oh my god.
That's what he's been doing.
He's been searching for Keldor, basically. I mean, it's not canonical. His long-lived status isn't canonical, but if they do canonize his age, then of course, yes, we have to see Plo Koon somewhere. We've already seen Terra. We've already seen Hu Yang. Well, Hu Yang's been there since 1032, since Bane. So, yeah, where's Plo? I heard someone was gonna say something.
Oh, I was gonna say, as a final thought, I don't think I've said anything that frustrated me about this book, but I have one thing, and I realized as I thought about it just now, that I have the same exact problem with Revan. So these are the same. They're the same. And in Revan, the only descriptor that is used, that Drew Carbishet uses to describe Canderous is the big man. Ever, always. And he's not saying Canderous, he's saying the big man. Over and over and over and over again. In this book, the only descriptor, except for maybe 2 instances that Claudia uses to describe Burryaga talking, is whines. And I noticed it over and over, and I started it as a counter, and I was like, please use a different word.
I like bark.
So nitpicky. But some instances of Burryaga have been, like, they use, like, speech bubbles and write it in English and just translate it afterward, or say like he said it in Sherwood. But yeah, that was just something I kept noticing over and over and over. He whined. He let out a small whine. Like, I'm just super nitpicky, but I just realized they're the same.
So you saying that reminds me of good friends of the channel. Check out Sith Faced, but they talk a lot about the Chiss Ascendancy, and in the Ascendancy books, if you make a word cloud of all the words, winglets is one of the top used words, because there's one character and that's the only thing that they could ever like use is like his winglets flailed wildly. But like he says it over and over and over again. Like as much as I love Timmy's on, like there's certain things he just winglets way too much. For a handful of heartbeats, he says that so many times. For a handful of heartbeats, there was silence. And you're like, you can't keep saying that, man. Get something else. I don't know. I tell you, that's what I'm saying.
Connor,
similarly, oh, go ahead.
well, just really quickly, Connor asks, have we seen the black saber that was in the posters yet? We haven't, but that stuff was concept art anyway, so it wasn't really any kind of consequence to the stories that we'd see. But go ahead, friend.
You could play a sort of drinking game with the phrase stared into the middle distance. There are a lot of characters staring into the middle distance in this book, so I noticed a similar like, oh, you are using this phrase a lot, which is, completely fine. And I certainly like have words or phrases that I will use over and over again in my writing because I just like the sound of them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, not a critique so much as just like, ooh, I could
I mean, really, for me, it's worse in Revan. Like the big man said this. It's just so weird, and I'm like, this is a very complex character. If you you wrote the character in the game, why are you describing him this way?
Ordo.
Right, I'm like the big man. Like, just say the Mandalorian said or something like that. But no, it's.
Polk Nature, that doesn't surprise me. I do not like Kalori. Kalori sucks. I hate him so much. I relish having him die in a book. But yeah, he's the owner of the winglets.
But going off of what Fern said, you can also make a word cloud over they started to hurt in their middle. Like middle is a very common word in Star Wars for abdomen.
Since things are getting cut off at 10:30 my time, I would like to say my final thought, which is just a PSA that everyone should pre-order Midnight Horizon. I have never in my life been as excited for a Star Wars book as I am for this one, with the exception of like my one favorite non-canonical Star Wars book that I read in high school when I still had like an undeveloped brain. This is the most I have ever loved a Star Wars book. Words cannot express it, and everyone should read it, and you're gonna love it, and it's fantastic. So go pre-order it right now. And I know there were links at the beginning of the stream, but also I will say a lot of times if you have like a local like independent bookstore, you can go in and ask them to order things for you, and they will, and that helps support your community. And that's what I've been doing, and it's great. So yeah, lots of ways to get your hands on this book, and you should do that.
Shout out to
I will also say
yeah,
it makes The Fallen Star better in comparison. Like, not only is it my favorite High Republic book and one of my favorite canon books, it makes The Fallen Star better in comparison. So like, really, I think it's going to be hard. Many people have said, like, how do we really gauge or like give our sense of like this wave as a whole? And I truly think we're not going to be able to do that until we have all of the pieces. And I think this is a really great example of like The Fallen Star is going to work best in concert with everything else in this wave. And once it's all finished, it will sort of we'll be able to get a better picture of it. But yeah, I agree with Fern. I am obsessed with it, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing people's reactions to it. So
I can't wait. All right, so let's start with Sawyer this time. Closing statements. Where can people find you, and what are you looking forward to next?
Okay. Sure. I mean, I feel like I said in my closing statements, but besides that, I'm Sawyer. I'm Sawyerism on all things except for YouTube. Maybe I have a camera now. Maybe I'll change that. Johnny told me I could do this. We came up with the title. I'm starting a new show, and it should come out in February. It's me and Marvelous Johnny of Voices of Atlas. If you guys aren't familiar with his content, please go follow him. I truly believe that I've found my platonic dyad for real. We're very excited about this. We're going to once a week get very drunk and tell you some crazy stories about nerd culture. And I think we're gonna call it Chaos and Cocktails with Johnny and Sawyer. And I'm very excited about it. I wasn't sure if it was going to be ready to announce, but he told me to go ahead. So that's what my next project's going to be, probably on YouTube. I'll have more information soon. Other than that, TikTok.
Nice. I like that name.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Julia, where can people find you? Anything you want to plug? And what are you looking forward to?
So I'm Julia Christine 77 on TikTok. I am posting videos again. I have still just avoiding Twitter. Don't go there; it's a bad place. So just come hang out with me on TikTok. Follow Star Wars English class. We have an episode on the Fallen Star, like I've said, and we will be doing a Star Wars book report episode on Midnight Horizon as well. So look forward to that. We have a lot of we're gonna kind of do a season 1 finale and then take some time off and do season 2, but very much looking forward to projects and sort of guests we want to have and all sorts of stuff we want to do. So very exciting. Looking forward to that in terms of kind of what's up next creatively. In terms of content, the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi is under the coming soon tab on Disney Plus has me feeling a certain type of way. So as you can imagine, once we start getting information about that show, I will be posting a lot of content. So that's kind of my plan personally as well.
And last but certainly not least, Fern.
Hello, I am Fern. You can find me on TikTok at always Fern. I am retired from TikTok is what I've decided. I'm not going to stop posting things. I just hit my goal for my follower count, and now whatever I do from here on out is going to be just what I feel like, when I feel like, etc., which feels very good. What you can find on there is occasionally Julia and I have a non-podcast that we earlier in the episode, 3 episodes of The Good Place and 1 episode of The Adventure Zone, a project that is truly, I think, just for us, but occasionally we do stream it on TikTok. So if you're interested in those 2 shows and you want to hear our thoughts, you can find us both on TikTok. SWEnglish class, of course, on Spotify and anywhere you get your podcasts. And I have been tweeting more in Julia's place at SWEnglish class on Twitter, so check that out as well. I'm not as good at Twitter as Julia is.
I'm the elder man of Twitter. I want to do good, but it's a dangerous place for me, and I give in to anger. And I need to go to a beach vacation, which is just not being on Twitter. I think that's what's happening. Vern is Stellan, and I am Elzar. That's what I think we figured out.
Who is our Avar?
That's a great question. Who's my Avar? Uh-oh. I gotta figure that out.
I will be your song. Although I legitimately feel that if you're looking for a Mace Windu of the High Republic, that's becoming Avar. It's the listen. Bad things are happening. Things need to be done. People need to be handled.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yep. I think a lot of the backlash they get is both based in people not realizing they have some internalized issues with people and identities, and I think that's a lot of people. I think they're in a similar boat, very much so, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think Avar is right. And that's just pulling my inner Elzar being no, she's never done anything wrong in her life.
Well, I had someone being Mace Windu was wrong because he suggested the assassination of Dooku, and you're but you like Anakin, and he did assassinate Dooku. So So, and
I
you
know
like
the video you're
Revan.
talking about. I know the video you're talking about.
You
yeah.
like Revan, who like Mace like, this is something that should be done, but I'm going to talk about this with this council of people so we can make a decision. But you like the people that made the unilateral decision to do the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, I think where I stand on that is that Mace ultimately sees the danger in the Sith versus everything else. So, like, if you think about Phantom Menace, he's like, Dooku used to be a Jedi. Like, you know, he's mindful of Dooku. But when he finds out he's a Sith, then he's a clear and present danger. That's where his mind's at. That's how I rationalize it. So, I mean, we that's probably another episode.
that's another episode. But, like, situationally, that was after.
Welcome to Pep's new podcast, The Mace Windu Show.
That was after wanton murder of like 1 billion refugees. Of like, hey, you can have the planet. We'll just take our refugees and leave. And Dooku's like, no, you're not leaving. And then Mace is like, yeah, we probably should kill him.
But that'll end this episode here. Thank you to Fern, Julia, and Sawyer for joining us for this breakdown of Fallen Star, and thank you especially to Sawyer for returning to the High Republic table. It's good to have you back. Choco, any final thoughts? Can you anything you want to say if you want to wrap things up?
Yeah, final thoughts is please read. I mean, if you're still here, you probably read the book, but it's super exciting. Definitely jump into Midnight Horizon. If you haven't, I feel like a lot of us jumped straight into the Fallen Star and didn't read Mission to Disaster first, which is okay if you didn't read it first. I read it second, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish I had read this first. But if you're interested in Vanessa Rowe's story and what they're doing, unlike Fern, I was very happy to know that she was safe during this time, because it was like, I can't have too many like things up in this will they or will they survive thing. My heart couldn't take Emery. Anyways,
well, before you finish, really quickly, Mission to Disaster, it is a youth reader, so it's like a 2-3 hour read. You can get to it quickly, and it's a really good book.
And actually, the recommendation is to read it after, even though chronologically it takes place before. But it's a quick read; you can get through it in a day, in an evening, or something like that. And it's a palate cleanser. You will be depressed after Fallen Star. This will like lift your spirits and like, okay. My babies are okay. But yeah, definitely check out the High Ground podcast on Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're always having a lot of fun. The next episode is also wavering due to cancellations already, but we always have a great time. We always have amazing people, and the goal is to connect the Star Wars community. We've connected a lot of TikTok people, and trying to incorporate a lot more people from Twitter and from YouTube, but all the positive creators who are trying to add to the community, that's who we want to highlight. Anyone we have on there, feel free to follow. It's got my stamp of approval, and I'll speak for Pep in saying it has his as well. But yeah, we love you guys. Thank you for supporting us and going on this journey with us.
And with that said, that is the end. On to the next one.
For light and for life,
we are all the Republic.
May the Force be with you. Ride the storm.